This is the story of a man who gets trapped in jail for the rest of his life. Now he had to spend the rest of his life in this jail. But when he finds out that his daughter's life is only a matter of days, he decides to escape from here at any cost. But little did he know that this decision of his was about to turn into a dream. So at the beginning of the story, we are shown a man named Frank who was reading a book. It was clear from his face that he was not happy here. In fact, he had to spend his entire life in this jail, and that's something he absolutely did not want. He had already spent half his life here, and now he wanted to spend the rest of it with his daughter. Meanwhile, we see some prisoners who were digging up a drain cover in a laundry room. Somehow, they managed to break open the drain cover, creating a large tunnel there. One by one, they all escape through that tunnel. In the end, a prisoner named Brody waits there for Frank to arrive. But even after waiting for a long time, he couldn't find any trace of Frank there. So reluctantly, he leaves him behind and jumps into the tunnel alone. But in his hurry, Brody forgets his cap there. But just then, Frank arrives at the scene. As soon as he arrives, he picks up Brody's cap and jumps down from there. After this, we are shown a flashback scene where we see Frank, who was a laundryman. His job was to wash the dirty clothes of all the prisoners in this jail. He was exhausted from washing the prisoners' clothes every day, just like always. He had to spend his entire life in this jail. So now he was doing this work out of compulsion. He knew that if he quit this job, the warden would torture him to death in this jail even before his actual death. That's why he quietly focused on his work and didn't talk to anyone. One day, when he returned to his cell after work, he saw that his cellmate who lived with him was busy packing all his belongings. It was now time for his release because his sentence was complete and he was about to be freed from this jail. Seeing this, Frank felt sad inside because right in front of him, his cellmate was going back to his family. But his own misfortune was that he had to spend his entire life in this jail. He would remain in this jail until he died. Meanwhile, all the prisoners were standing ready to welcome the new inmates. At the same time, all the new prisoners enter the jail. All the prisoners are brought into the jail with their belongings handed to them. The prisoners are very happy to see them coming into the jail because in this jail, the leaders among the old inmates would always mark their territory on every new prisoner who arrived. That means they would select them and then make them fight among themselves. Whoever won that fight would be bought by the leaders of the prisoners and included in their group. Meanwhile, a prisoner named Reza is approached by his brother Tony, who excitedly tells him that this time they need to choose the strongest fighter for their group so that they can win every fight. Here, after checking all the prisoners, they are sent to different cells, and a prisoner named Lacey is sent to Frank's cell. As soon as Lacey enters the cell, he only sees a place to read books and 2 cots for sleeping. After this, when night falls, all the prisoners are told to go inside their respective cells. But that very night, a guard brings a letter for Frank. When Frank opens and reads the letter, it says that because Frank hasn't come home for many years, his daughter tried to take her own life. And now she is admitted to the hospital in a very serious condition. Even the doctor has told them that if her mind doesn't calm down in a few days, she could lose her life. Hearing this, the ground slips from under Frank's feet because his daughter was his everything, and now her life is in danger. So he starts thinking to himself that no matter what happens, he will definitely meet his daughter at any cost. For peace of mind, Frank goes straight to a church, but the church was closed. A guard comes and tells him that the time is up. Now you should come back in the morning. So he starts to leave. But seeing the sadness on Frank's face, the guard opens the church door for him. In one corner of the church, Frank looks at the letter and breaks down in tears, because the very reason he is serving time in jail is now the one whose life is at stake. The next morning, while Frank was washing clothes in the machine, he noticed the air vent on the machine. He also saw a water pipe above, from which water was dripping. Seeing this, he realized that this pipe must lead outside the jail, and this is where the real story begins. That very night, Frank tells Brody, a prisoner in the cell next to his, about the air vent, and says that if you help me, together, we can escape from this jail. Frank tells him that I want to escape from here only and only for my daughter because my life is tied to hers. I don't want to lose her, and I'm sure that as soon as I leave, she will get better. But Brody flatly refuses him, saying that he will not help him. He knew that even if they managed to escape, the river ahead would drown and kill them. In fact, Brody knew every inch of this jail, but still, he refuses to help Frank. So when Frank shows him that letter, he finally agrees to help him. Brody tells him that to escape from here, he will need the help of a prisoner named Lenny, who is a boxer. He is the most dangerous inmate in this jail. If he wants, he can help us a bit. So that very day, Frank goes straight to Lenny, who was very angry. Actually, he was about to be released in just a few days. But after beating up another inmate, his sentence was extended, which is why he was so furious. Frank tells him his entire plan to escape from here, and after hearing it, Lenny agrees. because this was also an opportunity for Lenny to take revenge on the warden. Now, these three had become partners, so the three of them start making their next plan. The three of them were sitting and playing a game of dominoes. But who would have known that under the pretense of playing a game, they were actually planning their escape? Here, Frank tells them that if we try to escape through the laundry room, everyone will find out and will get caught. On top of that, water passes through that area. That passage is also very narrow. Even if we want to, we can't escape from there. That's why we'll have to reach the laundry room through another route. Frank tells them that when he was in the church that day, he found a wall there made of wood, and now, because it's old, it's become weak. We can break through that wall and easily reach the sewer. But Lenny tells him that if we go inside the church in front of the guard, he might get suspicious of us. But Frank wasn't just any ordinary prisoner. He had spent half his life in this jail. By now, he had become a cunning inmate. He had learned exactly what to do and when in this prison, and that's when he hands a pouch to Lenny. As soon as Lenny opens the pouch, he finds wheat flour inside, with an imprint of the church key on it. That day, Frank had cleverly pressed the key into the flour to make its imprint. Seeing this, Lenny is completely shocked because both of them thought they were very clever. But Frank turned out to be 2 steps ahead of them. Frank asks them, "How are we going to cut the air vent of that machine?" "Because it's made of iron. Even if we want to, we can't open it by hand." Then Lenny says, "Consider our job done because I have some pieces of iron lying around. But we won't find a cutter in this prison, so we have only one thing that can cut that air vent, and that thing is a diamond. We will need just one diamond so that we can use it to cut the air vent of that machine, because a diamond is very strong. With its help, we'll somehow manage to cut that air vent." Hearing this, Frank tells him that it's impossible to find a diamond in this prison. But then Lenny tells him that he has a solution for this too. "There's another fighter in this prison at my level who has a diamond set in his tooth." In fact, this fighter was the leader of another cell, just like Lenny, because the warden here assigns numbers to all the new prisoners and makes them fight the top fighters. Whoever wins becomes the leader of that cell. That's why Lenny says that to get the diamond, we'll have to fight that fighter, and at the right moment, I'll strike his tooth and hide the diamond with me. That very night, Lenny was waiting for all the lights to go out. As soon as the entire prison's lights go out, Lenny quickly breaks off a metal bar from his cell and another from a frame. Lenny joined those 2 metal bars together to make a rod, which he was now going to use to cut the air vent. But he still needed that same diamond to cut through the air vent. On the other hand, Frank goes straight to the cell of the fighter named Totten and challenges him to a fight with Lenny. Now all 3 friends had made their plan and were ready. Brody uses those domino tiles to make a map and explains to them the route they would take to escape. Their route went from the machine's air vent straight to the sewer. A little further ahead, there was going to be a river. After crossing the river, their final destination was the train tracks, which would set them free from this prison. Brody tells them one last thing. "If we don't cross those train tracks before 5 in the morning, we'll all be killed." Because right after 5 o'clock, a full 630 watts of current is released onto those tracks, making it impossible to survive. But they had no other option, so they decided to escape from there. After figuring out their escape route, the 3 of them planned to break out of this prison 3 days later. Meanwhile, Tony, standing above, was watching all the planning happening among them, which made him realize that these 3 were about to do something big and dangerous. After this, Lenny was standing ready to fight with that fighter. It was clear from the fighter's face that he was nothing less than a beast. All the prisoners gathered to watch the fight. There, all the prisoners were loudly cheering for the fighter to win. At the same time, the fight begins. Lenny lands 2 punches on him. But then, the fighter hits him back with such a powerful punch that Lenny collapses right there. But this was Lenny's last chance at freedom, so he musters his courage and stands up again. As soon as Lenny got up, he put all his strength into a punch that knocked out the fighter's tooth, sending it flying to the ground. But before anyone else could pick up the tooth, Lenny quickly hides it on himself right there. At the same time, he pretends to faint so that he doesn't have to fight anymore. So when the gods see him faint, they come and take him away from there. That same night, inside his cell, Lenny is attaching the diamond to the iron rod. As soon as he attaches the diamond, he creates a sharp, blade-like rod, almost like a cutter. The next day, while showering, Tony approaches Frank. He tells him, "I know everything about you. You 3 are planning to escape from here, but I will never let that happen." Threatening him, Tony says, "All I want is a 1-kilo packet of drugs, or else I'll tell the warden your entire plan, and you'll spend the rest of your life dying here like a dog." So Frank told his companions everything, that Tony wants a packet, only then will he leave us alone, otherwise we'll all be locked up here forever. They couldn't even kill him to get him out of their way because Tony was the brother of Reza, the most dangerous inmate in this prison. As long as he was around, no one could lay a hand on him. They knew that if they killed him, Reza would tear them to pieces. So even though he didn't want to, Frank tells the two of them that they don't have much time. We'll have to get help from an inmate named Viv Batista inside this prison. He's the only inmate who can help us. Actually, Viv Batista sells drugs to everyone in this prison in collusion with the warden. But the price of this drug is very high, which ordinary inmates can't afford. That's why Tony was using them to ask for the drug. That same day, Frank goes straight to Batista. Frank tells him that if he wants to escape from this prison, he'll have to help them. Frank tells him that he has to give a packet of the drug to Tony. So hearing this, Batista agrees. But Batista knew that even if he gave the drug packet to Tony, Tony would still tell the warden about their escape plan. So to get Tony out of the way, Batista decides to mix poison into his packet. That same night, Batista mixes poison into the drug and prepares a packet. Batista, under the pretense of giving a book, throws the packet directly into Frank's cell. At night, Tony comes with his friend to collect the packet, and seeing this, Frank gets angry at him, saying that he told him to come alone. Because if this information spreads outside, their entire plan will fail, and they will spend the rest of their lives here as prisoners. But Tony retorts that he should do as he says and give him his packet, otherwise he'll expose everything about Frank. So Frank hands him the packet of drugs. But before Tony can leave, he starts harassing Frank's companion, Lacey, because Tony had his eye on Lacey from the very first day. But Lacey wasn't a pushover either. He then picks up a chair and repeatedly hits Tony on the head with it. And seeing this, Tony's companion grabs the packet and runs away from there. Lacey was not about to let Tony go now. He tries to suffocate Tony with a rag pressed against his mouth. But Frank intervenes and stops him just in time. Because of the beating, Tony is left in a terrible state. Lacey beat him so badly that he could barely walk. As he crawls and drags himself toward the stairs, he suddenly falls down the steps, and Tony dies right there from the fall. News of his death is immediately delivered to his brother Reza by another inmate. As soon as Reza hears the news of his death, he goes straight to Tony's cell. When he lifts Tony's companion, he finds that he is already dead. Actually, out of greed, he had taken all the drugs, which were poisoned, and because of that poison, he also dies. Meanwhile, as soon as Tony dies, alarms start blaring throughout the prison. That's why Frank cleans up all the blood spilled by Tony in his cell, because he knew that Reza would definitely come to interrogate him. On the other hand, the guard throws Lacey into a dark, solitary cell. As soon as Reza finds out that Frank was also involved in his brother's death, he goes straight to his cell. Reza tells him that he'll spare his life if he tells him the truth. At first, Frank lies to him, but he knew that Reza wouldn't let him go so easily. Then he tells him the truth, saying that he is not at fault. He says, "Your brother Tony was harassing Lacey himself. That's why Lacey beat him up in return." Hearing this, a fire for revenge against Lacey ignites inside Reza. Reza tells him that as soon as Lacey comes out of solitary confinement, he must bring him to Reza's cell. In fact, now Reza was planning to kill Lacey inside his own cell to avenge his brother. Meanwhile, all the friends were busy with their own work. Brody prepares some candles for the darkness. Here, Lenny takes out a stolen hammer and screwdriver from the prison, and both of them wrap those items in cloth and hide them. As soon as Batista comes to collect everyone's clothes, the two of them cleverly put those clothes, which contained their tools, into the basket. Because Batista was going to take this basket directly upstairs. Batista takes those clothes and throws them down in the laundry room. Because, except for Frank, no other prisoner was allowed in the laundry room. Those clothes fall directly into Frank's basket. Frank takes those clothes and hides them in the laundry room, because tonight they were all going to escape from here, and all this stuff was going to be useful for them. As soon as Frank hides all the items and comes upstairs, a guard calls him over from behind. Hearing this, he gets goosebumps because now he thinks his plan is about to fail. But when he goes to the guard tells him that someone has come to meet him. Actually, his wife had come to visit him. His wife tells him that their daughter is no longer with them because she passed away in the hospital last night. Hearing this, the ground slips from under Frank's feet because the person he wanted to escape for is no longer in this world. So now he decides to spend the rest of his life in this prison. On the same day, Lacey is released from solitary confinement. Lacey goes straight to his cell. As soon as he arrives, Frank tells him that Reza has asked me to bring you to his cell because he is going to take his revenge on you. Frank gives him a photo of his daughter and says that there will be a hole in one of the rooms in the church. Batista and Lenny will be waiting for you there. Actually, Frank says this because now there was no point in escaping from this prison for him anymore. Because his daughter had already left this world, and now, instead of trying to escape himself, he tells Lacey to escape, because he knew that Reza would kill Lacey. That's why he was ready to sacrifice his own life in Lacey's place. Meanwhile, as soon as the guard locks up the church at night and leaves, Lenny comes there to call his companions. Both of them were pretending to sweep the place as an excuse to be there. As soon as the guard goes upstairs, Lenny takes out the key he had hidden in his hair. They quickly unlock the church door and go inside. The three of them go straight to the room that Frank had told them about. They immediately start breaking the wooden plank, which had become weak due to its age. Somehow, they manage to break through the wooden wall and reach the sewer. After this, we are shown the same scene where all the prisoners were escaping that night. As soon as Lenny gets inside the air vent, he starts cutting it with his rod. Somehow, he manages to cut the air vent in the middle. As soon as the air vent is cut, they all cross through the air vent duct one by one and move forward. Moving ahead, they come across a well, which they need to cross in order to proceed further. Just before they can leave, it starts to rain. But somehow, they all manage to climb down into the well. As soon as they get down, they see a door in front of them, which was tightly shut. They all put in all their effort and somehow manage to open it. As soon as the door opens, they all enter a tunnel. At this moment, Brody lights the same candles and gives them to the others, the ones he had secretly made in his cell that day. They light those candles and run straight towards the train tracks. Running happily, they suddenly bump into a wall ahead, which was completely sealed. Seeing this, Lenny loses his courage, because their plan has failed. So Lenny gets angry at Lacey because he wasn't included in the escape plan. Lenny punches him in the face. As soon as he throws the punch, a stone falls from the wall. Seeing this, they realize that the wall isn't strong, because the presence of water here had weakened the wall. That's why they all start digging at the wall. As they keep digging, the wall turns into a sort of tunnel. But even then, it was still blocked ahead. So Brody crawls inside and starts digging further. But just then, the wall collapses from above and Brody gets trapped among the stones. So Frank quickly goes inside and somehow manages to remove all the stones from on top of him and pulls him out. But Brody was completely unconscious. They pick him up and move forward from there. A little further ahead, they come across a large gate that is firmly locked, which they can't open without the keys. At the same time, Frank finds a door to the side, which luckily is open. As soon as they step out through that door, they find themselves in front of a railway track. But as they were walking, they realized that Brody was no longer breathing. When they looked at him, Brody had already passed away there. So even though they didn't want to, they leave him there alone and move on. Now they had only 1 hour left, because at exactly 5 o'clock, an electric current was going to be released onto that train track. So they start running quickly, and while running, they end up falling into the same river that Brody had told Frank about. Now, before they could drown and die in that river, they somehow managed to save themselves and reach the riverbank. As soon as they reach the other side of the bank, the train tracks are right in front of them. So without wasting any time, they move forward. They were all moving ahead when suddenly Batista's foot gets stuck between the tracks from behind. They all quickly try to get him out, but unfortunately, at that very moment, a train is speeding towards them. Lenny puts his life on the line to get him out. The train had come very close, so Lacey and Frank quickly step back, and at that moment, the train runs over both Lenny and Batista, crushing them as it passes. Now only the two of them were left. They see a light ahead, and upon seeing it, they quickly run forward. As soon as they moved forward, they found themselves at the train station, and seeing it, their happiness knew no bounds because they had finally escaped from that prison. Frank and Lacey both quickly changed their clothes, and after saying goodbye to him, Lacey runs off towards his family. As soon as Frank reaches those stairs, his heart leaps with joy because now he was about to head straight home from there. He was happily climbing up those stairs, but suddenly he feels a jolt from behind, and we see Frank inside the prison in Reza's cell. In fact, Frank gave Lacey a picture of his daughter and helped her escape from there, and then he took Lacey's place in Reza's cell. He kept Reza distracted by engaging him in conversation so that Lacey and the others would have enough time to escape from the prison and reach their destination. Actually, the shock he felt was because Reza had stabbed him with a knife, since Reza had realized that he was trying to stop him in order to help his friends escape. As soon as Reza stabbed him, he collapsed straight to the ground. This means that what we saw about all 5 friends escaping was a lie, because Frank never escaped from here. All these years, he was only thinking about escaping from this prison just to meet his daughter. The escape with his friends was just a dream, because in his dream, he was escaping from this prison with them. And when he found out that his daughter was no longer in this world, he was completely shattered from within. That's why, instead of escaping himself, he told Lacey to escape from here. After this, we are shown the same scene that we saw at the beginning of the story, where all the friends are digging at that place. At that moment, Lacey arrives there, and seeing him, Brody is about to kill him. Just then, he shows the photo that Frank had given him of his daughter. So Brody realizes that Frank sent him to escape in his place. So one by one, they all jump into the tunnel, and in the rush, Brody's hat is left behind. But just then, Frank also arrives from behind, picks up Brody's fallen hat, and jumps down after them. Here we find out that the hat Frank picked up was actually already picked up by Brody himself. This means it was all a dream playing out in his mind, because his other 4 companions had already escaped. After this, we see Frank, who was taking the last breaths of his life. He was still seeing glimpses of his daughter in his mind. He sees his daughter standing by the riverbank. As soon as she sees her father, she runs straight into his arms. At the end of the story, we are shown that while the guards in the prison were trying to lift him up, he passes away right there upon seeing his daughter in his dream. His other 4 companions manage to escape from there. But poor Frank's dream of escaping from this prison remains just a dream. And along with his dream, he also loses his life. And this is where the movie ends. If you like this video, please like it and subscribe to our channel.